This exercise is the CylinderTorusHalfPipe, and I wanted to make this video to take you through a couple of the steps that might make this a little bit easier for you. Functionally, this is really no different than any of the other exercises. It's made more complex because you have to think ahead a little bit, and there are a couple of, there are multiple steps to it. But if you keep your work organized and just deal with one little step at a time, you should be okay. So the first thing I wanted to do is bring to your attention just some of the features of this exercise. The shape here is almost symmetrical across the center line, this YZ center line. It's close enough that I'm going to treat it as symmetrical. This one cylinder here it's entirely on one side of the half torus. This one intersects and goes across this halfway point, but I'm going to fudge that a little bit. Patch modeling is generally used for organic modeling, like animals and humans and things like that. So I'm going to, I know that once I get these things put together, I can sculpt this into the shape that I want. I'm not concerned with exact, precise measurements like, specific radii and radians and things like that. So I have a little bit of leeway. Looking at this in the front view then, I want to divide this down the center. I can see that my torus has a center line that goes across the y-axis, but this half pipe does not. So the other thing that I wanted to point out over the course of doing this is that the geometry that we're given is not necessarily the geometry that we have to use. We can always rebuild this to suit our needs. The one thing that you want to keep in the back of your mind is that you can always add density to these objects without having to worry about the shape. Sometimes if you subtract the density, the shape might be altered. So you just want to kind of keep that in the back of your mind. This piece of geometry, this half pipe, has 7 sections, so there's no way that I'm going to be able to get a center line. It has to be an even number of sections. So in looking at the history here, the surface history, I have 7 spans in U and 7 spans in V. And that also means that I don't have a center line going this way. So I'm going to change this to an 8 by 8. So I see that this half pipe piece, the center line doesn't line up with my y-axis. It's just offset by a little bit. So there's no reason why I can't just move this at this point. So I'll just grab the object, hold down the X key, and then move it along the X-axis so that I can line up the center line with the y-axis. So then, in looking at this, I'm going to take half of this. I'll split this along the IsoFarm. Just hit the Detach key. I'll select this IsoFarm and detach that one as well. And I'll take these 3 objects and just go ahead and delete them. So already this exercise has become simpler. I'm only going to do half, and then when I duplicate these 3 pieces, I can invert them on the X or the Z or the Y axis as necessary, and then I can just reattach at the same time. So then the next thing I'm going to do is break this up into pieces. So I'll select this IsoFarm here. Actually, before I do that, let's see, I'm going to select this piece of half pipe here, and I'll go into the layer editor and make a layer out of it and make that layer invisible. So I'm just going to work on this part right now, and it seems fairly clear that this cylinder is going to go into this little patch right here. So I want to spend a little bit of time making this a little bit easier to deal with. So I'll select an IsoFarm here and drag it over so that it's close to where this insert point is going to be. I'll do the same thing over here. Drag that up like that. Okay, so we remember from the cylinder plane exercise that when these IsoFarms are fairly close, it gives us a pretty good attach point right there. There are other ways of doing it, but but I'm fully anticipating that I might have to redo this at some point. But for now, this is fine. So I'll insert an IsoFarm there. So edit NURBS, insert IsoFarm. So from here, I'm not sure, where I want to put these side IsoFarms. I'm going to just leave them the way that they are, and we'll see how that works. I'm fully anticipating the possibility of, having to go back and, see that what I'm doing doesn't quite work. So I'll go back and rebuild after that. But for now, I'll select these two IsoFarms, and I'll detach along there, and I'll select these two IsoFarms and detach along there, and I'll get rid of this patch. Maybe that didn't detach. I'll select that patch there, and so that's going to be my point of connection right there. So there's one thing that I want to do with this end piece. Well, first of all, I'm going to have to just go ahead and detach these here and here. Let's go ahead and detach that. And what I'm going to do here, I'm not sure this is entirely necessary, but I'm going to do it anyway, and maybe I'm overdoing it, maybe not, but I'm going to divide this torus into quarters, because I've already got the center line going down here along the side. I've got the center line going down the top. So I wanted to give myself a center line going down the side here, and then I'll take the center line and go down the bottom. I'll just detach those. So now this top half of the torus is broken up into 4 sections. 1, 2, 3, and then that fourth one would be the hole, and then I've got matching pieces going all the way around there. So I'm going to do the same thing on this piece of the torus. Select there, and there, and there, and let's just detach one at a time here. I'm just hitting the G key. Alright, so now I've got this broken up into all these different parts, and I want to start rebuilding these so that I can make my selections. We've already learned that the more spans we have, the tighter the angle is going to be. This is kind of a large span to cover, and I'm not sure that my global stitch is going to be able to handle that, so I'm going to show you just an alternative to that. Also, right here, I don't want to attach that the way that it is, because I only have one span going across here. I'm not going to have much control over the shape unless I have at least 2 spans. So let's start with this one here. Let's look at the surface origins of that, and I can see that the cross cut here is the V direction. So I want to have 2 spans in the V direction, so I have that extra IsoFarm going across there. As far as the U direction is concerned, I like working with 4 spans, and again, my goal here is to try to make squares wherever possible. I'm going to try rebuilding this into a 4 span in U and a 2 span in V, and so that's giving me some nice squares right there. So I think that's probably satisfactory. So this one here I'm going to rebuild the same way, and I'll actually just go all the way around and go 4 by 2 on all of them. Again, the most important joint right there is where they meet at this crossways, so I definitely need that to be 2. Whether I choose to make that 4 or 5 or 6 really doesn't matter, as long as the ones that are adjacent to it are going to be the same. So going across here, again, I probably want to have 4 going across this way, just because that's the way I like to do it. in this direction here. Let's just take a look and see which direction is which. So in the U direction, I need to have 4 spans because that's what I'm meeting up with over here. In the V direction, it doesn't matter, but I like to have 4 to work with because it gives me the most. And it's also going to make this turn into squares. So I'll make this one a 4 by 4 as well. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to make all of these now 4 by 4 because they have to be 4 in the U direction and 4 in the V direction because that's what their adjacent surfaces are. So I'll do the same thing here and here and here and here. So again, I've completely rebuilt all these surfaces to match what my goals are, and I haven't changed the shape because I'm actually increasing the density of these surfaces, not decreasing it. So now what I need to do is take this cylinder and match the same surface parameterization. I want to find an isoparm that's going to match up with this corner right here. So I may be able to take this one. Let's just eyeball down, and it seems like it's going to join up like right here. So I'm going to just move that a little bit. Let's bring it over here, and I'll detach right there. So remember that the isoparms, when you identify an isoparm like this, technically you need to insert it and then detach. But if I just detach, that does both. It inserts and detaches at that point. This one looks like it lines up fine, so I'll just detach that. And then this one looks probably close enough. Maybe I'll just bring it over just a little bit to make it just a little bit more accurate, and I'll detach that there. So now I have 4 of these, and I know that needs to be a 4 span surface in the V direction. And it doesn't really matter what I have going in the U direction, but if I've got 4 going in the U, I'm sorry, if I've got 4 going in the V, I probably want to increase this just to give myself some squares. So let's just do it this way. I'll rebuild this as a 4 by 4, and you can see that I have elongated rectangles here. It's not the best distribution, so maybe I'll go with a 6 by 4. Okay, so that gives me a little bit better distribution there. So I'll select all of these then and make them all 6 by 4. So now I've got a 4-span surface here that's going to line up with a 4-span surface here, and I can work my way all the way around this and do my attaches. Now there are 2 ways that I can do these attaches. One would be to select these 2 isoparms and use my attach tool. Okay, and that's going to stretch that, and that's probably going to be okay. You can see where it stretches a little bit to make that attach. If you have too long a surface to attach there, what you can do is create an intermediate surface in there. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go to my surfaces. I'm going to select a loft, and I'll select 2 section spans and apply that. And that's going to give me an extra little surface in there that I can deal with. So let's do that all the way around. I'll select these 2 isoparms. Just treats them as curves, and I'll apply and create a loft there. Same thing here. So now I have 4 lofts that are creating this. Loft in this case works very similar to the bridge tool. So I'm going to go around and attach my lofts. Well, first I'm going to rebuild everything. Actually, I'll delete all my construction history and then rebuild everything. And I'm going to keep my number of spans on everything. So now everything is going from 0 to 1, and there's no history. So I'm going to attach the lofts to the cylinder so I can make one piece out of this. So I'll attach that. So I'm going to go around and finish the attaching on all of these. So I've got all 4 of them attached. I'm not going to detach them just yet. I'm going to rebuild them. And you see, when I rebuild this, it redistributes all those isoparms and kind of puts more down here where I have all that curvature. If I don't want that to happen, I can keep my CVs in place. And that's it's still gonna do it a little bit, but it's gonna affect it a lot less. So the next thing I want to do is go around and attach these surfaces to each other. So of course, before I do that, I'll delete the construction history and then come and select one and then the other and attach and then detach. You can see that that's going to make this a little bit rounder along this edge right here, which is kind of nice. I'll attach and then select the isoparm. Detach. I'll attach and detach, and the last one. So at this point, this is probably ready to go ahead and global stitch. So let's do that. I'll select all of these, and just as one last little measure of accuracy, I'll delete the construction history and I'll rebuild all the surfaces with the CV option to keep. I'll select my global stitch. I have the last 3 on here. My modification resistance is set to 10, and I'm going to deal with the max separation in the construction history. So I'll go ahead and global stitch that. And it looks like I don't have to do anything. It looks like it's stitched perfectly. So that's step 1. Step 2 is going to be down here, and the only difference in step 2 here is that I want to take this half pipe here and match it to what I've got on the Torus. I guess I have to delete the construction history here. So in this case, there is a possibility that I don't necessarily have to match exactly, or I can redistribute these corners. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and detach this, say, along this isoparm. When I look at the distribution here, and I look at these quarters here, I'm not so sure that I want to split this down along the center line right here. I think I want to have a patch that crosses the center line. It's going to be a little difficult for me to line up this cutout along this quarter. I'd rather have a square on this thing. So the stitch tool can be forgiving as long as your isoparms line up and you have the same numeric distribution on all your surfaces. The global stitch tool can accommodate something like that. So let me just set that up, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to select this isoparm here and here and here and here, and I'll detach those surfaces. Okay, and then I'm going to create another layer here. I'll select all of these and I'm going to just get them out of my way. So let's just make those invisible. Add that to the layer. So now I don't have to deal with that other piece. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to attach these two pieces together, and I'm going to detach them in a different place. I'll detach them here. So now I have a 4-span surface that's going to go across that center line without actually having to split it at the center line. So I'll do the same thing across here. I'll take these two pieces and attach them, and then take the 4-span surface, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll select this IsoFarm and detach it there. I'll take these two and attach them, and I'll take 1, 2, 3, 4 and detach them there. So now I still have 4. Oh, these two I need to attach then also. Okay, let's delete all the construction history, and I'll rebuild these, keeping the CVs. And so now I have 4 pieces here, but it lines up a little bit better where it's going to attach to the half pipe here. When I look at this other piece right here, my segments are different, but as long as I have the same number of spans going all the way across, it should stitch okay. I'm counting on that. So again, I'm going to do the same thing here. I will select an IsoFarm. Let's go into the front view here. Oops. Let's go into the front view. I'll select an IsoFarm and come pretty close here. I'll come pretty close here, and I'll insert those. And then looking at it from the side, it looks like I'm pretty well lined up on my side pieces, so I'll be all right with those. So I'll select here and here and detach, and here and here and detach, and then I'll just finish up. I'll get rid of this. So again, I have 4 spans here, so I want that to be a 4. This one, same thing. All of these. And then this one, I want this one to be a 2x4. The reason is that I need it to be 4 to match the adjacent one, and I want to have at least 2 spans going across this joint here. So I'll make all of these 2x4. And now everything lines up and is good to go. So now I have the choice. Do I want to attach these? I certainly can. Let's just select we'll select all of these. We can delete the construction history. We can rebuild everything with the number of spans. And I can certainly attach these if I want. And work it this way, or I can put a loft in there. Either way, whatever's going to work for you. So let's attach them and see how this works. Now I'm being a little bit sloppy. I'm not reversing all the directions, and I'm kind of taking my chances. And when I don't reverse the directions, I know I can force these to attach at this IsoFarm if I pick the IsoFarm instead of picking the surface. So they're all attached. Now I can go back and detach. I'll detach them all. I'll rebuild them all. Keep the number of spans. And then I'll select everything and delete the construction history. This is kind of a big gap to be trying to fill. So I don't really trust that Global Stitch is going to do that, is going to fill that in as well as I'd like it to. So I'm going to nudge these together a little bit more. So I'll do that by selecting these IsoFarms and attaching and then detaching, like we did in class. Attach and detach. Let's just rebuild. And we can delete the construction history. So this is ready to be global stitched. We can go through one more round of attaches and just to see what happens there. So if I take these two and attach them, you can see they pull apart a little bit more. So it's not great, but let's see what happens when we global stitch. So I'm going to increase my max separation. See, I'm going pretty slowly here. So that's not too bad. It looks like it's working pretty well. Pull up a little bit more. So I can't seem to get these last two surfaces to pull together by increasing my max separation there. So I'm going to stop here. Well, here's why, because I didn't have that one selected. So let's just undo that. Okay, and I'll make sure that this is selected now when I do my global stitch. That would help. And that pulls together pretty nicely. All right, so let's delete the construction history. That gets rid of that global stitch node. I'll show my other layer. Now here's where I want to make sure that that I can pull this in so that it's tangent. These are separate detach lines, so we'll see if this works. I'm going to grab everything here. I'll give it one last round of deleting the construction history and rebuilding the surfaces. This may be unnecessary, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, so that everything is nice and clean, and then I'll go ahead and global stitch this. Okay, so it pulled that in nicely. It respected the numeric spans, even though my corners are in different places. So that's the way that works. Now it's up to you whether or not you want to just attach these like I did with the lower ones, or put a loft in there like I did with the upper one. Remember, every time you attach or detach or put a loft in there, it's really just a temporary measure, and what you're doing is just nudging these closer together so that the global stitch has a better chance to work. So my final step here, I still have a lot of construction history from the last global stitch. So I'll select all my surfaces and delete the construction history. And then let's just go into the front view. I'm going to group all of my surfaces. And I'm going to duplicate them. So I'll go to Edit, Duplicate Special. And in this case, I want to make sure I make a copy of the geometry. So, actually what I'll do is I'll reset the settings here so that I have all the default settings. And my geometry type is going to be a copy. And what I want to do is use a scale value of -1 on the x-axis, and that's going to duplicate it. It'll invert it along the x-axis, so I'll get an inverse copy over here. And then I want to do the same thing on the z-axis, and that's going to reverse this horizontally. So let's go with a -1 on the z-axis, and I'll duplicate special. Okay, and you can see that it gives me the inverse along the x-axis and the inverse along the z-axis. Once I've duplicated it, it's quite possible that some of these vertices might have gotten shifted a little bit and they don't exactly line up. I think there is a spot where that happens, right in here. So I'm going to have to deal with that. I could deal with that either by attaching and detaching, or I can maybe just global stitch the whole thing again and treat this as one big piece, and then just make sure that everything lines up in the same way that we've done before. So that's it. And then the final step, of course, is to group everything, and then you want to convert this to polygons, combine, and merge.